Good morning. Um, so today I am editing interviews and videos and things like that. Um, I find that if I batch the work, it makes it a lot easier. I can just knock it out. Um, what else? Yesterday I had an interview with someone. I actually went to high school with her. She's like one of the few people that I still know from high school. It was a really good conversation. One of the things we talked about was about how perfect is the enemy of done, that saying, and how oftentimes we don't get started because we don't feel like we have the resources or like the people, the manpower, things like that. Um, and so I started talking about how, in my view, like I think it's important to prepare for the future that you want. So for me, I'm a team of one with Reverb Root. Eventually, I would like to be more than a team of one. Um, and so for me right now, I am putting systems in place that can help support me as it's just me, so I don't feel like overwhelmed or like this whole thing is unsustainable. Um, but then the other reason of putting in the systems in place is essentially creating like knowledge management. So anytime I have things that are either repeatable or um, anything that lives in my head, I put it down on paper to the best of my ability so that when the time comes that I have a team, um, they will be able to have reference material. They don't have to keep coming to me to ask what I was thinking, why I was thinking it, what should we do. They'll be able to see my thought process, see how a process works, and then hopefully they will have like a better, more efficient way of doing that thing. And then they can come to me and say, "Hey, I see that this is the process, and you wrote that this is your thought process as to why we should do it this way, but I have this more efficient way of doing it." So all that to say, I think it's important to prepare for the future that you want, even if it doesn't look like you're anywhere near that future. Okay. It looks like nighttime, but it is not. It is 8:02 in the morning. Very cloudy, very rainy. So I've got my brightness up full, and this is what we got. Okay, so this morning I woke up thinking about the power of the pivot and about how we can cause ourselves so much unnecessary anxiety and suffering by not pivoting and by fighting against reality. And what I mean by fighting against reality is all the signs are there, it is laid out right there in your face. And instead of saying, okay, I see it, I'm going to do something differently, you say, well, I just need to give it more time, or um, I can fix it. Like I can figure it out. It's not that bad. It's gonna work. It's gonna work. Um, instead of just seeing reality for what it is. And so I feel like last year was a lot of that, of fighting against reality, of trying to force things. By the time this is published, there will be at least one interview and conversation and video published, both to the YouTube channel but also on the archive on the website. So I'm excited about that. I think that that's another kind of situation of not fighting its reality. And the reality was that I absolutely hated the way that it took me hours to go through and transcribe like full 1 hour videos, conversations. And I kind of came to the realization that like if I don't like reading the transcriptions and I'm not going to be reading the transcriptions on the website, then other people likely won't either. And that I have to find a way to share the conversations in a way that's like visually engaging and interesting. Um, and so on the archive, I have where people can like listen to the full audio. That's why I also have been like uploading the conversations onto YouTube so people can watch. Because I know video, I love video, so you know. Um, and I, instead of posting the full transcript, I just post like summary pieces, like excerpts. And so that's been very nice. One, for my time and for me not to feel overwhelmed, or to sit on interviews for months, because I'm backed up with like others. Um, but also, I think it was kind of a situation of I've heard this saying of like turning your back to the audience. Actually, I have a sticky note for when I feel too in my head, turn your back to the audience. Um, and so that was a situation of turning my back to the audience, of like creating for the pure joy of it because I love it, and presenting it in a way that I really love, and just trusting that, um, going by intuition, um, will be helpful and engaging for other people as well. And I think it has. I've gotten some really good feedback on it. I have kind of slacked on making art, um, this week, kind of last week. I mean, I did go to the art museum last week and that was fun, but like practicing my watercolors and my oil pastels, I've kind of slacked a bit on it. So I think this weekend I'm going to make it a point to carve out some hours to sit and do that. I really wanted to use this year to create, to connect, to do things that bring me joy. And art is one of those things that does those things for me. Um, but maybe more importantly, in the same vein of like done, like, what is it? Perfection is the enemy of done. Um, I find that if I'm making art, and especially in a medium that I'm not very good at, um, it helps me not take myself too seriously, and it helps me remember that, um, the point is for the joy of it. I feel like that's like my theme for the whole year. That's like my saying, the point is for the joy of it. If it's not fun, if I'm taking myself too seriously, if I'm forcing it, if I'm sucking all the fun out of it, then what's the point? We made it to Saturday. Um, I am feeling really good today because earlier this week, might have been yesterday or the day before, I published one of the recent interviews that I did this month, um, and also published it on posted it on YouTube. So I'll put it here or here somewhere. Um, yeah, but I got feedback back. Like I sent the link to the person I interviewed. Her name's Yashana, and she sent me back a response that had me really thinking and feeling really proud and excited. So she said basically that the interview felt really personal and that she had never read words that were unfiltered, as in like cleaned up, filler words taken out, things like that. And she said that by it having that in there still, it felt really like unfiltered and personal. And that made me feel really excited because, um, for context, one of my favorite authors is Zora Neale Hurston. And she is an African American author and cultural anthropologist. And she's really, really well known for her work having um, like really localized, how do I say it? Localized dialects. So she doesn't in her characters, and also like she's done interviews with people and things like that. Like she doesn't remove their dialect, meaning she doesn't like code switch it. So if someone's going to say I'm, I'm going to go over to da 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 da, she's not going to change the words to say I'm going to go over to blah blah blah. Like she, as best as she can, she keeps their dialect in its truest form. And even back then, like she got, criticism for that at times, for like not basically making it match this kind of European aesthetic that can be easily read and understood. She really like stood 10 toes down on that, that like the way that people talk in their true form should be recorded, and that that language is a part of history and it has value and it should not be changed. Um, and so I've done like a lot of research on her. I like last summer I read a book that was specifically about her work as a cultural anthropologist. Um, and it made me really excited that someone commented on that, on the fact that I don't change the language, or code switch it or whitewash it or anything like that. Like the words a person says, I try to, like, the best of my ability, keep it as true as I can, in its like original form. And so, yeah, I feel like, um, I feel like so often, like when I read things, whether it's in magazines or books or, like transcripts, things like that. I even think back on, during like the Great Depression when people traveled around and had like full interviews with people who were formerly enslaved. I think that's hopefully still in like the archive on our government website. It wouldn't surprise me if it's gone. That's a whole other topic. Um, but even then, when I read like all of those different types of works, like it does cross my mind of like how much it's been altered, and like I wonder what this person actually sounded like, or I wonder if they really said it in those specific words, or has it been changed so that it's easier to read and understand. Um, One of the books that I've read, I don't think I have it here on a shelf, but one of the books that I've read by Zora Neale Hurston, I remember like the first book I ever read was in high school, and it was this book called Their Eyes Were Watching God. And it was the first book that I'd ever read where it was in like in true dialect. It wasn't altered. And I remember just starting to read the book, and it took me a second to like get adjusted to the words being so like raw. Um but by the time I like finished the book, I like was blazing through, like it was, I could hear it, and it was almost as if I felt like I was there. um because of that, like the language didn't feel removed from the person, and therefore I felt closer. So yeah, that's like my approach to, when I like edit and transcribe and all of that, like those interviews. Like I want people to experience the person's words as closely as they can to what they sounded like when they came out of that person's mouth. And I feel like by doing that, it's almost like, not time traveling, but it's almost like traveling to a different place, you know? Um, and it's an acknowledgement of, it's almost traveling to a different place by way of the words themselves, but it's also, I feel like, an acknowledgement of the validity of language, the diverse languages and dialects that exist in this world. It doesn't have to just look one way. It can look many ways, and it does, and that should be reflected. So that is what I've been thinking about today. And yeah, I'm very thankful for those words, because to some extent, the easier thing to do would be to take, to just transcribe it, clean it, and, not sanitize, but wash it, and take out those, like the texture of it. That would be so much easier than not doing it. But I really feel there's so much value in it. Um, yeah, so I'm excited about that.